What if your worst breakdown could trigger your greatest breakthrough? Modern neuroscience is revealing what Carl Jung suspected a century ago. Psychological crisis doesn't just shatter old patterns, it creates the optimal neurobiological conditions for profound transformation. The human brain's remarkable capacity for neuroplasticity means that moments of complete psychological collapse can become gateways to entirely new ways of thinking, feeling, and being. In the darkest periods of mental anguish, when everything familiar crumbles away, the neural pathways that once trapped us in limiting patterns finally loosen their grip, allowing space for revolutionary rewiring to occur. Emma's life exemplified this phenomenon perfectly. As a 34-year-old vice president of a global marketing firm, she had constructed what appeared to be an enviable existence. Corner office overlooking the Manhattan skyline, six-figure salary, carefully curated Instagram presence, showcasing weekend brunches and luxury vacations. Yet beneath this polished exterior, her brain had carved deep neural ruts of perfectionism, people-pleasing, and chronic stress response that were slowly suffocating her authentic self. The collapse came swiftly and completely. Over a single devastating weekend, the scaffolding of Emma's identity disintegrated in spectacular fashion. Her partner of 3 years confessed to a long-term affair, her critical marketing campaign failed catastrophically on launch day, and her father suffered a massive heart attack that left him clinging to life in intensive care. By Sunday evening, Emma sat in her empty apartment, staring at her phone as unanswered calls from concerned colleagues blinked like warning lights on a sinking ship. In the aftermath, tasks that once felt automatic became impossible. Her hands trembled uncontrollably when reaching for her coffee mug. Concentration evaporated. Emails remained half-written. Strategy presentations sat abandoned, and simple decisions about what to wear felt monumentally overwhelming. Sleep brought no relief, only nightmares that replayed scenes of humiliation, betrayal, and mortality. Panic attacks ambushed her at random moments, stealing her breath and leaving her gasping in public restrooms and conference rooms. For 3 weeks, Emma existed in a fog of disorientation and despair. The woman who had always prided herself on resilience and control found herself broken and lost. Yet within this apparent disaster, her brain was quietly orchestrating something remarkable. The chronic stress that had finally overwhelmed her system was simultaneously triggering massive neuroplastic changes. The rigid neural network that had kept her trapped in perfectionist patterns were being dismantled, creating space for new connections to form. Dr. Patel, Emma's therapist, recognized what was happening when she finally sought help. Rather than immediately reaching for medication or quick fixes, he introduced her to a radical perspective: breakdown as breakthrough, crisis as catalyst. He explained Jung's concept of the transformation archetype, the universal pattern where psychological death precedes rebirth, where the dissolution of false identity creates space for authentic self-emergence. Jung had observed this phenomenon throughout his clinical work and personal experience. He described periods of divine madness, where individuals undergo necessary psychological decomposition before emerging renewed. Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong journey of integrating conscious and unconscious elements of the psyche. Emma's crisis represented what Jung termed a psychic rupture, where the shell of her fabricated identity cracked open to reveal the untapped potential beneath. The first step in Emma's transformation required surrendering to the breakdown rather than fighting it. Instead of desperately trying to reassemble her shattered life exactly as it had been, she began exploring what lay beneath the ruins. In therapy sessions, she traced the roots of her perfectionist complex back to childhood experiences with a demanding mother who praised only achievements, and an older sister whose constant success had left Emma feeling perpetually inadequate. This exploration revealed the unconscious patterns that had been governing her life. Emma's drive for external validation had created neural pathways that prioritized others' approval over her own needs. Her brain had become hardwired to scan for threats to her image, flooding her system with stress hormones at the slightest sign of imperfection. The romantic relationship she'd clung to, despite obvious incompatibilities, reflected her neural programming to avoid abandonment at any cost. As Emma began journaling her daily experiences, raw emotions, intrusive thoughts, moments of unexpected insight, she noticed something profound happening. The chaotic swirl of breakdown was gradually revealing patterns and themes. Recurring dreams of locked doors and crumbling buildings spoke to her unconscious mind's process of dismantling old structures. Images of seeds sprouting through concrete sidewalks suggested new growth pushing through the cracks of her former identity. Jung emphasized emphasized that individuation requires making the unconscious conscious, bringing hidden patterns into the light of awareness. Emma's crisis had blown open the doors between her conscious and unconscious minds, creating unprecedented access to previously hidden aspects of herself. She discovered a buried longing for creative expression that her career-focused life had never acknowledged. She found wells of intuitive wisdom that her rational mind had dismissed as impractical. The neuroplasticity activated by her breakdown was literally rewiring her brain for greater integration and authenticity. Stress hormones that had initially felt destructive were also promoting the growth of new neural connections. Brain regions responsible for self-awareness and emotional regulation were forming stronger links. The prefrontal cortex, which governs conscious decision-making, was developing new pathways that bypassed the old patterns of automatic people-pleasing and perfectionist striving. Emma's story illustrates the profound truth that Jung intuited and neuroscience now confirms. Breakdown and breakthrough are not separate events, but two faces of the same transformational process. When psychological structures that no longer serve us finally collapse under their own weight, they create the precise conditions necessary for radical neural reorganization. The brain that once trapped us in limiting patterns becomes the very instrument of our liberation, rewiring itself for greater consciousness, authenticity, and wholeness. Jung's death-rebirth archetype stands as a universal blueprint for transformation. Before anything truly new can emerge, the old self must first dissolve. Following Emma's crisis, her experience perfectly echoed the archetypal journey that Jung described, a necessary psychological death that precedes authentic personal growth. Within Jung's framework, breakdown is not a sign of failure. Rather, it represents a crucial point in the individuation process, where the conscious and unconscious collide, forcing the personality to confront its deepest wounds and outdated patterns. Emma's therapy began with her raw admission of defeat. She felt like she was losing herself, but Dr. Patel encouraged her to see this dissolution as the first stage in the archetypal process, a symbolic death where controlling attitudes and brittle defenses lose their grip. Jung observed that this psychic death is marked by intense discomfort, anxiety, confusion, and the loss of familiar identity markers. For Emma, panic attacks and waves of grief were not merely symptoms to anesthetize with medication. They were the signals that old neural pathways were breaking down, making room for something new. Jung called the next stage the descent into the shadow. Emma's journaling sessions and therapy conversations revealed a tapestry of fears, hidden desires, and unresolved conflicts buried in her psyche. She found herself revisiting childhood moments that shaped her perfectionism and people-pleasing behaviors, memories of seeking her mother's approval, competing with her sister, and feeling invisible at school. These insights initially felt overwhelming, yet Jung emphasized their necessity. Only by facing the shadow, those parts usually pushed out of awareness, can transformation occur. During a particularly vivid dream, Emma saw herself wandering alone through a dark forest. Jung believed such imagery represents the inner journey, where individuals confront confusion and chaos in order to retrieve lost aspects of themselves. The forest is the realm of the unconscious. The wandering signals the disintegration of the old ego. Fear and confusion give way to curiosity, as Emma realized her breakdown was revealing hidden potential she'd never considered. A creative impulse, a longing for intimacy beyond performance, a desire for spiritual depth. Jung argued that this stage is often accompanied by divine madness, intense psychological upheaval that shatters rational certainties. Emma, who had always relied on logic and order, experienced moments of emotional flooding, intuition, and dreamlike insights. While terrifying, these states are not pathological in Jung's view. Instead, they mark the psyche's effort to reorganize itself. Emotional storms purge outdated attachments, clearing space for new synthesizing forces. Therapy became a crucible for Emma's transformation. Dr. Patel encouraged her to explore her dreams, practice active imagination, and experiment with new forms of self-expression. Emma found that even her body mirrored Jung's archetypal process. Tension and pain gave way to spontaneous movements, and a newfound ease in breathing. The death of old routines was accompanied by stirrings of creative energy and self-compassion. Gradually, Emma moved toward the archetype's third phase, rebirth. Jung called this the emergence of the true self, a unique pattern that arises when unconscious energy integrates with conscious intention. Emma's recurring dreams shifted. The locked gate she once encountered now swung open to reveal a blooming garden. She felt a growing sense of purpose, not tied to her career's status or her relationship's outcome, but rooted in her own exploration and authenticity. This psychological rebirth was not a tidy resolution. Rather, it was an ongoing process. Emma continued to experience setbacks and doubts, but now viewed them as part of her individuation journey. Jung insisted that the true self is not something given, but something slowly built through encounters with crisis and inner darkness. By embracing uncertainty and making meaning of her breakdown, Emma gradually constructed a life aligned with her real values and passions. The death-rebirth archetype, Jung explained, is the pattern found in myth, religion, and personal transformation. Emma's journey, her collapse, descent into shadow, periods of disorientation, and gradual rebirth, mapped the same terrain as ancient stories of the hero's quest and the phoenix rising. Her breakdown, rather than ending her story, initiated the most important chapter, the evolution from a socially constructed identity to a consciously chosen existence. Jung's model reveals that every personal crisis holds profound invitation, not just to survive, but to transform, as death becomes the seed of authentic life. In the weeks following her symbolic death and rebirth, Emma noticed more than psychological shifts. She experienced tangible changes in how her mind operated. Tasks she once found daunting began to feel approachable. When she sat down to write a new marketing proposal, ideas flowed freely rather than stalling at the blank page. Her emotional swings steadied, her sleep improved, and she felt a sense of mental clarity she had never known. Behind these subjective experiences lay the brain's remarkable capacity for neuroplasticity, its ability to rewire itself in response to experience, especially during times of crisis. Neuroplasticity operates on several levels. At the synaptic scale, repeated mental and emotional activities strengthen certain connections while weakening others through synaptic pruning. During Emma's breakdown, her habitual pathways of anxiety and perfectionism became destabilized by sustained stress and introspection. Simultaneously, her exploration of new self-concepts, journaling about creative passions, practicing mindfulness, engaging in active imagination, activated alternative neural circuits. Those emerging pathways, initially fragile and faint, gradually gained strength as she repeated novel thoughts and behaviors. Brain imaging studies show that crises trigger surges in growth factors such as BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which nourish neural growth and synaptic plasticity. In Emma's case, the emotional turbulence unleashed a flood of stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, that initially felt destructive but also played a key role in mobilizing her brain's repair and remodeling processes. The heightened neurochemical environment created a window of opportunity. The old, rigid circuits that supported her identity could be dismantled, and new, more adaptive networks could form. At a structural level, chronic stress and trauma often shrink regions like the hippocampus, which governs memory and emotional regulation, while enlarging the amygdala, the brain's fear center. Emma's panic attacks and insomnia likely reflected amygdala hyperactivity. Yet as she embraced therapeutic practices, mindful breathing, somatic awareness, and dream exploration, she facilitated hippocampal recovery and prefrontal cortex engagement. Strengthening prefrontal activity supports executive functions, planning, decision-making, and emotion regulation. Emma noticed that where panic once overwhelmed her, she could now label and calm her fear in real time. Functional connectivity between brain regions also transforms during recovery. Emma's increased self-reflection and creative experimentation enhanced communication between her default mode network, DMN, active during introspection and self-referential thought, and her executive control network, ECN, engaged in goal-directed tasks. Improved DMN-ECN coupling underlies a healthy balance between self-awareness and deliberate action. In Emma's experience, the mental fog of rumination lifted, replaced by intentional reflection guiding purposeful steps forward. Even her body's sensory systems played a role. Neuroplasticity extends to the somatosensory cortex, where enhanced body awareness from mindful breathing and somatic exercises reshaped the brain's map of her body. Emma's conscious attention to tension and release rewired pathways linking interoceptive regions, those sensing internal bodily states, and prefrontal regions mediating emotional insight. The result was not only only physical relaxation, but also a deeper sense of embodied self-awareness, essential for integrating mind and body. Crucially, the window for maximal neuroplastic change opens most widely during periods of heightened emotional arousal, crises. Evolutionarily, threatening situations demand rapid learning and adaptation. The brain becomes more malleable to establish new survival strategies. Emma's crisis primed her neural circuits to absorb fresh information and imprint new habits. Her decision to journal daily, experiment with creative outlets, and practice conscious breathing did not merely feel therapeutic, they were literally shaping her neural architecture. Yet neuroplasticity is a double-edged sword. Just as crises can foster positive rewiring, without conscious direction, the brain may cement maladaptive patterns. Emma's initial weeks of panic and isolation risked reinforcing fear circuits and negative self-beliefs. The difference came when she paired her inner work with deliberate practices targeted at new pathways. This conscious harnessing of neuroplasticity turned her crisis-induced vulnerability into a breakthrough zone for growth. Understanding the science behind neuroplasticity also sets realistic expectations for transformation. While dramatic change sometimes occurs, most rewiring unfolds gradually. Emma's newfound mental clarity did not emerge overnight, but built steadily as she integrated novel practices into her daily life. Each mindful breath, journal entry, or creative moment acted as a micro-intervention, nudging her brain toward more adaptive configurations. Over months, the cumulative effect became evident in her renewed confidence, emotional equanimity, and imaginative spark. Neuroscientists emphasize the importance of repetition and emotional engagement in strengthening new connections. Rehearsing integrated self-concepts through affirmations like "I am worthy of creative expression" and strategic action, or visualizing herself moving confidently through life, activated both affective and cognitive circuits. Emma's active imagination dialogues with her inner shadow and newfound self served as potent rehearsal exercises, embedding fresh narratives in her neural fabric. Moreover, social interactions contribute to neuroplastic change. As Emma shared her journey with empathetic friends and supportive therapy groups, her brain's social cognition networks, regions that process empathy, trust, and mutual understanding, became more active and interconnected. These enhancements reinforced her emotional resilience and sense of belonging, further supporting her transformation. In essence, Emma's crisis ignited a neurobiological renaissance. The brain dismantled outdated patterns while growing new structures aligned with her emerging identity. Jung's insight that breakdown precedes breakthrough finds its counterpart in neuroscience, demonstrating that the brain remains plastic throughout life, especially in moments of crisis. By consciously engaging this plasticity through reflection, creative exploration, mindfulness, and supportive relationships, individuals can direct neural rewiring towards self-emergence and lasting change. Emma's burgeoning mental clarity and emotional balance testify to the brain's astonishing capacity for self-renewal. Her experience illuminates a powerful truth. Crises, though painful, activate the very mechanisms needed for transformation. When the old self collapses, neuroplasticity offers the promise that something new and more authentic can take its place, proving that breakdowns can, and often do, become breakthroughs. Emma's collapse, while devastating, also provided a unique opportunity to dismantle the false self she had spent her life maintaining. In Jung's view, crisis functions as a catalyst that forces the psyche to confront its own constructions, revealing the inauthentic patterns that govern behavior. Breakdown is not merely the dissolution of old structures, it is the necessary clearing away of psychological debris to make room for genuine self-emergence. Reframing her breakdown as a breakthrough allowed Emma to shift her perspective from victimhood to possibility. During her worst weeks, Emma felt trapped in narratives of failure. "I'm incompetent. I don't deserve love. My life is over." Each thought strengthened the neural circuits of self-doubt, reinforcing her destructive patterns. Yet once she recognized these narratives as mental habits rather than truths, she began to interrupt them. Whenever a self-critical thought surged, she paused and asked herself, "What story is this thought telling me?" By externalizing the narrative, viewing it as a character rather than her own voice, Emma created separation from her habitual patterns. This simple act of detachment weakened the neural pathways of negative self-talk and opened a space for alternative alternative perspectives. Reframing also entailed shifting her relationship with discomfort. Instead of resisting anxiety and grief, Emma learned to regard them as messengers pointing to areas in need of healing. Jung likened the unconscious to an underground river whose currents only surface through jolts of emotion. When Emma's chest tightened with panic, she stopped what she was doing and brought gentle attention to the sensation. She noted, "This tightness signals fear of abandonment. What does it want me to know?" In that pause, she discovered memories of isolation when friends drifted away after she prioritized work. Acknowledging the genuine hurt beneath the panic allowed Emma to reclaim her unmet needs for connection. This process of reframing aligns with cognitive neuroscience. Research on emotional regulation shows that labeling feelings, naming anxieties, shame, or anger activates the prefrontal cortex and diminishes amygdala hyperactivity. Emma's mindful inquiries served as real-time rewiring, turning reactive fear into conscious curiosity. Over time, the neural circuits associated with panic weakened, while those supporting reflective awareness strengthened, enabling her to navigate emotional storms without being swept away. Crisis also dismantles rigid identity categories. Emma had identified primarily as successful VP, dependable partner, and perfect daughter. When those roles collapsed, she faced a yawning identity void. Jung maintained that the persona, our social mask, must eventually be shed for individuation to proceed. Emma's breakdown ripped off her persona, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. Yet in the absence of the old mask, she found glimpses of her true self, the part that delighted in painting, the part that yearned for meaningful conversation, the part that felt drawn to nature. Reframing breakdown as opportunity guided Emma to experiment with new ways of being. She enrolled in a weekend painting workshop, not for mastery, but simply to feel color under her fingers. She spent Sunday afternoons hiking in a nearby park, noticing how the rustle of leaves and the patterns of sunlight ignited a sense of aliveness distinct from her corporate achievements. These exploratory activities planted seeds for a self-concept rooted in personal joy and curiosity, rather than external success. Jung wrote about the transcendent function, the union of conscious and unconscious elements that gives rise to new meaning. Emma's crises and experimental pursuits activated her transcendent function as she synthesized rational insights from therapy with intuitive guidance from her dreams and embodied experiences in nature. This synthesis generated novel perspectives. She realized that her value did not depend on flawlessly executed campaigns or unblemished personal relationships, but on her capacity to grow, learn, and love authentically. Reframing also required Emma to practice radical self-compassion. In the grip of her breakdown, she had berated herself for weakness and failure. Guided by Jung's emphasis on the healing potential of compassion, Emma began speaking to herself as she would to a dear friend in crisis. "You've been through an immense ordeal. It's understandable you feel lost. You deserve kindness and support." These compassionate self-statements did more than soothe her spirit. They engaged neural pathways associated with self-soothing and social connection, activation that countered the withdrawal and isolation typically reinforced by harsh self-criticism. Social reframing played a crucial role. Emma opened up to a small group of trusted friends, sharing her raw experiences rather than maintaining the curated facade she once upheld. Their empathetic responses shattered her belief that vulnerability would lead to rejection. Instead, their support illustrated Jung's notion that interpersonal connection is vital for healing. Conscious relationships become conduits for encountering unconscious material safely. As Emma witnessed her friends' genuine care, her neural circuits for trust and social reward strengthened, further diminishing her crisis-induced fear of abandonment. Moreover, Emma reframed professional breakdown as opportunity by seeking roles that aligned with her emerging values. Rather than returning to the high-pressure marketer track that had contributed to her collapse, she accepted a position leading creative innovation in a smaller organization, one that prized experimentation and work-life balance. This career pivot illustrated the power of crisis to redirect life trajectories in more fulfilling directions. By consciously choosing a path informed by her transformed priorities, Emma enacted the final stage of reframing, translating inner breakthroughs into external change. In reframing breakdown as breakthrough, Emma illustrated Jung's fundamental insight. Crisis is not an aberration to avoid, but a doorway to transformation. The psychic rupture that once felt like annihilation became the very process through which her authentic self emerged. By consciously interrupting old narratives, exploring new experiences, and practicing compassion and connection, Emma harnessed the catalytic power of breakdown. Her journey reveals that when the old self collapses, we gain the extraordinary chance to rebuild on a foundation of integrated awareness, creativity, and resilience, proving that every breakdown holds the seed of a breakthrough. Emma's journey through breakdown and rebirth illustrates the brain's innate capacity to rewire itself, but transformation requires intentional action. When crisis cracks open old neural networks, the mind becomes uniquely receptive to new pathways. To harness this neuroplastic window, Emma integrated 5 practical techniques designed to direct brain change: focused attention training, procedural learning, emotional reappraisal, social resonance practices, and embodiment rituals. First, focused attention training strengthens prefrontal circuits that govern executive control and downregulate fear responses. Emma dedicated 10 minutes each morning to a simple concentration exercise. She chose a single object, a flame from a candle or a point on the wall, and maintained her gaze, returning attention whenever her mind wandered. Over weeks, she noticed a marked reduction in intrusive thoughts and improved capacity to sustain effort on challenging tasks. Neuroscience shows that such selective attention exercises increase gray matter density in the anterior cingulate cortex and enhance connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and amygdala, bolstering emotional regulation. Second, procedural learning. Acquiring new skills through repetition creates robust neural pathways that solidify fresh habits. To counteract her career-driven perfectionism, Emma enrolled in a weekly pottery class. Working clay required patience and tolerance for imperfection, qualities her brain had seldom practiced. Each 2-hour session involved repetitive shaping and smoothing of the clay, habituating her motor cortex and basal ganglia to experiences of trial, error, and creative flow. The tactile feedback loop not only built artistic skill, but also rewired her reward system to value incremental progress over flawless outcomes, shifting dopamine release toward process rather than performance. Third, emotional reappraisal reshapes how experiences are encoded in memory. Emma began labeling strong emotions in real time. During pangs of anxiety, she noted, "I'm feeling anxious because I fear rejection." By deliberately reframing these emotions in neutral language, she engaged the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex to reinterpret amygdala-driven signals. Over time, this practice fostered more balanced emotional responses and prevented the consolidation of traumatic fear memories. Studies confirm that cognitive reappraisal reduces activation in emotion centers and strengthens prefrontal amygdala connections, facilitating long-term resilience. Fourth, social resonance practices leverage mirror neuron systems and oxytocin release to reinforce adaptive neural patterns through connection. Emma joined a small peer support group where members shared daily reflections and practiced active listening. In each meeting, participants alternated speaking and listening roles, with listeners paraphrasing the speaker's feelings before responding. This structured empathy exercise heightened Emma's neural capacity for perspective-taking and trust. The group's non-judgmental environment released oxytocin, strengthening social bonding and enhancing neural receptivity to positive relational experiences, counterbalancing earlier patterns of isolation and self-criticism. Fifth, embodiment rituals integrate mind and body to solidify new neural maps in sensory and motor regions. Emma adopted a daily grounding sequence, combining gentle yoga stretches, somatic scanning, and rhythmic breathing. She spent 5 minutes moving through poses that opened her chest, hips and shoulders, then lay still, mentally scanning bodily sensations from head to toe, and concluded with a paced breath cycle. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold briefly, exhale for 6 seconds. This ritual synchronized cortical and subcortical networks involved in bodily awareness and stress regulation, gradually rewiring the insular and somatosensory cortex. She found her stress response recalibrated, cortisol spikes flattened, and her baseline felt calmer. Beyond these core methods, Emma layered additional practices. She used visualization techniques to rehearse new outcomes. Before meetings, she imagined herself speaking calmly and asserting boundaries with warmth. Mental rehearsal activates the same motor planning regions as physical practice, reinforcing confidence and reducing neural uncertainty. She also tracked her progress with a reflective journal, noting small wins and difficulties, which engaged the ventral striatum's reward circuitry, reinforcing commitment to change. Sleep hygiene played a crucial role in consolidating new learning. Emma prioritized consistent bedtimes, reduced screen exposure before sleep, and practiced a short body-mind relaxation sequence at night. Deep sleep and REM phases support synaptic consolidation, transferring her daytime practice into stable long-term memory. Neuroplastic research highlights sleep's essential function in pruning obsolete connections and strengthening newly formed ones, making restful nights a foundational element of her rewiring protocol. Nutrition and physical exercise further amplified her brain's plastic potential. Emma incorporated omega-3 rich foods and antioxidant vegetables, promoting neurogenesis and reducing neuroinflammation. She engaged in moderate aerobic workouts thrice weekly, activities known to elevate BDNF levels that nourish emerging synapses. These lifestyle choices optimize the biochemical milieu for change, aligning body physiology with her neuroplastic objectives. Finally, Emma cultivated a growth mindset to sustain neural rewiring. She adopted the mantra, "Challenges are opportunities for learning," speaking it aloud whenever setbacks arose. This belief engaged dopamine circuits linked to exploration and resilience, reducing fixed mindset patterns that her crisis had exposed. By viewing obstacles as invitations to practice new responses rather than threats to her identity, Emma maintained persistence in her rewiring efforts even when progress felt slow. Over months, the cumulative effect of these practices manifested in enduring changes. Emma's daily focus extensions allowed her to complete complex strategic projects with renewed clarity. Her emotional reappraisals transformed panic into curiosity, enabling her to tackle relationship conversations with composure. Social resonance reinforced her trust in supportive connections, reducing isolation. Her body-mind rituals anchored a sense of stability that persisted beyond sessions. Emma's transformation underscores a powerful principle. Neural rewiring is neither mystical nor reserved for rare prodigies. It is the natural capacity of every human brain, especially when crisis dissolves outdated neural patterns. By deliberately engaging targeted practices, focused attention, skill-based repetition, emotional reframing, social empathy, and embodied rituals, individuals can guide neuroplasticity towards self-emergence and lasting change. In Emma's case, her breakdown became the breakthrough moment her brain needed, and her intentional rewiring techniques cemented a life rebuilt on authenticity, resilience, and creative possibility.